Okay, you can see we've taken the wire from the back of the ring, or the power puck, and we've run it inside the rotor, just as we saw before. We took a piece of double stick, laid it along the hub, and run the wire along that double stick out to where that main bundle is. Now, a couple things that we probably should have touched on before. One is wipe your wires down when you're putting them on the double stick as well, because if you've got grease or fingerprints and things like that, that'll prevent it from doing its job. So now you see that we've got the wire on the double stick coming out to the main bundle. What we also did is we took a couple of wire ties and wrapped them around the hub and around that wire from the puck and over the double stick, so that it holds it firmly in place. So now we're over to the main bundle, and we're going to tie that line right into the main bundle with a wire tie. Okay, so now we've got everything out here. We're ready to do our final terminations and tying everything together. Okay, for single color installations, you're going to use just the black and just the blue wire that come off of the slip ring or the power puck. The black is going to go to the ground on your wires, and the blue is going to go to your positive leads, which are the colored wires coming off of your LEDs. Now you'll end up with 2 extra wires at this point. If that's the case, you'll just want to snip them off. And there we have it. Okay, so now we've soldered all our connections, and then what we did is we took shrink tubing and covered each group independently. In other words, the positives with one piece of shrink tube and the negatives with another. Then we put them together and covered both of them together with another piece of shrink tube. Now, what you'll also notice is we've taken a wire tie and put it underneath the first wrap of LED wire as we came around, because all these LED wires end up wrapping around essentially once fully. So what we're going to do is we're going to tie the big bundle to that one individual wrap, and again, it's all on the double stick as well. So we're going to tie that in place, and then we're going to remove the remainder of the double stick covering, and stick it down best we can. Now we're going to take this entire bundle. Now that everything is generally held in place, we can cut off some of the wire ties, just so that you don't end up with bumps under the tape when you put the tape on. And for this installation, we're going to use just regular electrical tape, because this is essentially a show bike and is rarely out in the rain or anything. But if you can get a waterproof tape, or the best thing yet is vulcanizing tape, that's even better, because that'll eventually seal to itself and create a waterproof permanent bond. So the secret to all of this is you want everything neat and clean, snug, but not stressed. In other words, you don't want to have wires pulling against any connections, specifically on the back of the power puck or to the LEDs. And if you just wrap this around tightly a few times, it'll look neat, it'll be secure, and you'll have a better job at the end of the day. Now you'll notice we're also doing all this on the non-profile side of the bike. In other words, we're doing it on the kickstand side, so that when the bike's at rest, most people are going to be looking at the profile side and they'll never see most of this work, and they're going to be 9 times out of 10 they're too dazzled by the lights to bother looking at anything else. Now, on some bikes you'll do it on the non-profile side because that's where you can put it. On other bikes you'll have to put it on the profile side. But again, if you work neatly, most people don't see it, and this is an extreme case with all these LEDs we're putting on this bike. Your pucks will come with a label for your particular bike telling you what side of the front and what side of the rear wheel that your puck should mount. So we're going to finish taping this up and then go on to the next step. All right, as we said earlier, we ran all the wires from the battery on the bike through the controller and down to the front and rear wheel, and each one of them terminates in our brush block. Brush block has 4 contacts, spring-loaded, and a cover over the back. Everything is pre-soldered. Do not take these apart. If you take them apart, you'll break them, and then you'll have to send them back and buy a replacement. But in any case, brush block we'll get to mounting in a minute, but what we also want to show you that's very important is that the slip ring is mounted flat on the rotor. So as we spin it, you'll see it doesn't wobble in or out from the rotor. And you can also see that the strips of Velcro are in between the bolts that bolt the rotor to the wheel. So the Velcro actually acts as a spacer off the front of the wheel, off the front of the rotor, and occasionally you'll need that. Now we've also loosened the axle a little bit so that we can create a small gap between the wheel spacer and the front of the face of the wheel. So now we can slip our bracket in there, but you'll see it's essentially almost dead up against the power puck. So that's not going to work. So what we need to do is we need to take this bracket and bend it into a shape, and it's essentially going to be bent like a Z, so that we can create the proper distance between the brush unit, the brush housing, and the slip ring. Okay, so now we've bent our brush block bracket and done a fit up on the bike to see how it all comes together. And this is almost about perfect. You'll see we made one bend to bring the bracket out, and then we made another bend to bring the bracket across the back of the block. What we also did is we put this small relief bend in it. So if you have to make an adjustment with the block, the interference between those 2 corners won't cause a problem. Now also notice the space between the face of the block and the face of the ring. It's only about 1/16 of an inch, maybe 3/32, and that's almost perfect. That's about right where you want it. But you'll also notice how the lower side is closer to the ring, or actually touching the ring, than the back side. And the reason for this is it's a lot easier to make an adjustment by pulling that bracket out a hair than by pushing it in. So see, just by moving it out a little bit, we'll be able to square that up and make sure that all those brushes are in the right location. And see, just by playing with it a little bit, you can get that right where he needs it. That's about perfect. There we go. That's perfect. Okay, so the only thing we did now is, if you see, we swung the mounting bracket for the brush block down to the bottom, or you can even turn it to the rear just so that it's less apparent. And we've run the wire up and along the brake cable. We got a little loop there yet to take up, but other than that. So now we've gone back and hooked up our battery, which I'm sure you disconnected at the beginning of this. And again, since we're dealing with a single color system, we've used the ground wire and the blue wire, just as we did down below, to hook into your controller. So now the only thing left to do is to turn it on and try it out. So let's do that. Hey, look at that. Works great. We've got it off the ground a little bit, so we'll give it a spin, make sure everything's good. So that's great. Hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, give us a call. Thanks.